everybody? Welcome to the Altitude Show. I'm your host, Dave Brinker. The Altitude Show is brought to you by Mountain Tough Fitness. I just turned 43 last month, getting a little bit old, but I am in the best shape of my life, and a lot of that can be attributed to the Mountain Tough app because they have programs for beginners, they have programs for the elite athlete, and everything in between. A functional fitness program for the hunter. And it's amazing. I love it. I know personally Dustin, one of the founders of this company. I've known them since they started the company. I truly trust them and what they tell me about my health. They're constantly testing different things in the lab in Bozeman, Montana to optimize their app and make it better for you, the consumer. So you need to go out to the app store. You need to use code DAVE20 and it gives you a huge discount on the app. DAVE20 gives you 20% off. So you need to go do that, and you need to start doing this a few times a week at least. And you will never feel better. Like I have never felt better in my life. So go out and get the Mountain Tough app. Use my code DAVE20 for 20% off. You will not regret it. Today we have Brady Miller on the show. I've had him a couple times before, known him for a long time. Incredible hunter, super hardcore, very knowledgeable, one of the go hunt guys. And he's also just fun to podcast with. He's great conversation. So we talk about his Alaska adventure this year. We talk about technology. We talk about long range shooting. We talk about tree stand hunting. It's very hunting focused today. And we geeked out almost 2 hours. I hope you enjoy it. So are you in your office today? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in the office.
Nice. Well, I mean, you're a good looking guy and all, but I'm more staring at those bucks behind you. I know.
I need to figure out a better way to move that big one in the back, because sometimes when I sit here, I block him, and I feel bad for him.
Well, and also you do what I do. Like if I sit in a certain spot in my office, the horns look like they're growing out of my head. That mount behind you looks really good. Sometimes mule deer forms don't have a big enough neck.
Yeah.
And that buck looks realistic.
Yeah, he is absolutely just breathtaking because of it's filled out like he is, and he was shot during the rut.
Oh, okay.
That is a giant body deer to begin with too, and the taxidermist did a phenomenal job on bringing that guy back to life.
What taxidermist did you use for that?
That's Jeff Baird.
Okay.
Strip taxidermy down here in St. George, Utah. And he basically is like, if you want a mule deer mount done, like that's the guy to go to. Like he just really I think for the most part he only does mule deer. Like I think he'll turn away elk because he would rather just do what he loves to do, and he loves doing big mule deer.
He's your type of guy. Exactly.
But I'm kind of sad that we're doing this today, though. I think later this week I'm going to have my moose hung up on the wall.
Oh, wow. Did you do a European, or what'd you do?
Yeah, European mount on the moose. I think that's going to go right where the mule deer poster is behind me. I just hope it doesn't fall on me, the moose, though. So I'm trying to navigate figuring out how to put a moose on the wall with metal studs in the office. And I got this big giant like Alaska state outline cut out. And so the bracket I think weighs like 20 pounds and the moose weighs 70 pounds.
Wow.
So I'm a little nervous that it's going to actually hold on the wall.
Yeah. So it's what, 90 pounds?
Yeah.
Ooh. Dude,
Yeah.
I have my elk coming, my Roosevelt from a couple years ago coming. It should be done next week. And I don't have vaulted ceilings in my house. And it's the taxidermist, I asked him for the dimensions. It's 60 inches deep, and it goes out 48 and a half inches from the wall. And I was trying to find a place in my house to put it yesterday. And I'm like, shit, I probably should have thought about this. But I think I'm going to put it here in my office, and it's going to be really cramped. Like it's basically, I'm not going to be able to go to one portion of my office, but I definitely don't want to put it like, I thought about putting it at the Peaks headquarters in Bozeman, but I don't want it that far from me.
No, you got to have it with you. That's a good power move, having it so awkward in your little office right there. And anytime, people want to watch this or come into your room, like, whoa, yeah.
Dude,
animals everywhere.
My kids' friends call my room here the room of death. So
it's a good one.
It's my room. I can do whatever I want. I like mounts.
Yeah, that's the same thing like in my office right now, because luckily I have tall ceilings at the Go Hunt headquarters. But like Porter's like, why don't you bring a bunch of your mounts and put them out in the main office or put them in the showroom? It's like, I just want it to be so awkward when I have to have people come into my office for a meeting and sit down and they just have mounts to stare at everywhere on the wall. Like I just want that feeling of just like I have no room on the wall anymore.
I mean, it's a hunting company, right?
Yeah. And I'm trying
That's
to do
that.
it. I'm trying to do it tasteful. Like I need some more prints in here. I can't just have all mounts. But I got a couch sitting over here. I got my office desk. Like I got a TV. Like I want it to be
Dude,
welcoming, but also say like, hey, I like to hunt.
dude, I've ordered two prints, or not. I don't know what you're considering a print. I'm not a big art guy, but I've ordered two pieces of art in the last couple months because I agree with you. Sometimes we overdo it on the taxidermy, but I want more art. As I get older, I appreciate art more. I'm
Exactly.
having
Yeah. I'm
some.
not sure what you would even call the difference between a print and a painting. I think a painting's original, and prints are copies of the painting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Look at us. We're art aficionados.
Yep. You think I'd know being someone who loves photography, but yeah, I really
Yeah,
do.
that's the other thing I've thought about doing is like printing out some of my favorite photos I've taken, and the thing about it is though you got to plan for it. You got to plan your room. Otherwise, most dudes' man rooms are just totally random frames on the wall. But you got to
Yeah.
plan like the sizes and the spacing, and I'm just not that type of person. So my wife's gonna have to help me.
Yeah. Even in my house right now, I'm like, I probably should do the same thing, hang more pictures up. But I'm like, I don't know what would look good next to another thing and what becomes too much. Because I can easily just go overboard.
I'm surprised that you're not like in Mexico or Arizona or somewhere like that right now. What's the problem? Why aren't you hunting mule deer?
I'm actually heading to Mexico in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. You're gonna go later.
Yeah, so I'll be in Mexico, leaving like January 31st and hunting the first couple weeks down there. So actually, I'm going to take, which is really fun. So like, I haven't been to Mexico in 10 years. The last time I went was literally 2014, and I shot a giant coos deer down there with a bow.
What I saw that was that the picture you posted the other day.
Yeah, that was a picture I posted the other day. Yeah,
That's awesome.
and so it's kind of cool because now I get to go back 10 years later, and now I'm taking hunt winners from Go Hunt. Like we had two guys win, one guy's from Indiana, and he's taking his brother-in-law. And so they just were, we did like a big giveaway a while ago where you shop, you get a bunch of entries, and then, if you're automatically an insider, you get some entries. And this guy from Indiana won. And so we're taking him and his brother-in-law down to Mexico, and they've hunted out west a few times, but I don't think they've ever killed anything. And so now we're going back to Mexico 10 years later. It's going to be on a different ranch, but it's kind of like hitting home to me because, that first hunt I went on, I won a photo contest. And that's why I went on that hunt. And now here I am taking people who have also won a contest in a way, a giveaway, on a hunt for their first goose deer. So it's kind of like
What
coming
photo
full circle.
contest did you win? Eastman's or something? Or
Yeah, it was like a combination with mainly with Kuyu, and then they had a bunch of advertisements back in the day where you send in a photo, they'd make an ad out of it. Then there was like my ad, my photo, my testimonial was in a bunch of hunting magazines. So I was in Eastman's, I was in like Western Hunter, and then people randomly at the end of the year voted on those basically customer testimonials, like through like social media and Facebook. And this was before like Go Hunt even existed. And somehow I ended up winning it and went down to Mexico, hung out with Jason Hairston, and Nate Simmons was down there filming, and it was just like crazy experience.
that was 10 years ago. God, I'm getting old.
10 years ago.
I remember so 10 years ago, 2013. I remember that. I remember that pretty clearly when you guys did that. I'm going to show this buck so people that are watching can look at it. So this is the buck we're talking about right here.
Yeah, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Like it's a coos deer that like I definitely don't deserve in a way because like I never hunted coos before. I'd never even seen a coos deer until I went down there, and then to go there and take literally one of the biggest bucks in the world, like just insane with my bow shot. Everyone down there kept making fun of me. Oh, Brady, you're bringing a bow to a gunfight. Like no one brings a bow to Mexico. Like you're not going to kill a coos deer.
Did you kill that on a water hole?
Yeah, I killed on the water hole. It was actually the first day I sat water. So I did spot and stalk for 2 days. Kept getting close, like 65, 70, and I had some does always bust me. And then I actually slipped once and fell and landed on my bow limb and literally delaminated the whole top of my bow limb, like scary. I'm talking like 1/8 inch delamination coming off the top. So I was like freaking out. I was like, I still want to bow hunt. And so I took a bunch of electrical taped up my limb, and then put sunglasses on, drew my bow back at the first time, and it was like creaking and making all sorts of noise. I was like, stay together, and I drew it all the way back. And it held, but I was like, well, now I need to go shoot my bow to make sure it's still sighted in. So I went and found this barn, and they had this hay bale in the barn, just like a normal little cattle hay bale, because it's on like a cattle ranch. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to shoot through that. Shot right through the hay bale, went right through and hit the back of the barn. I was like, yeah, I can't be doing that anymore.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Completely blew right through it. I should have known my arrow would blow right through it and should have shot the long ways of the hay bale rather than the vertical.
Right.
So then I went outside and I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't have a target. I need to resight this bow in because it definitely did not shoot correctly that first shot in the hay bale. So I found a bunch of cow patties. I literally took like 8 cow patties and stacked them up next to each other and used that as a target and then resighted my bow in shooting at cow poop.
Hey, it's just like a target, right?
Just like a target. Yep. And then the next day, I think I shot a javelina with my bow. So I go, my bow's on. And then the first day I actually went and sat water, like literally, I think it was an hour and a half, 2 hours. This big giant buck just came right down to the water, shot him at 30 yards, jumped in the air and kicked, landed in the water, ran across the pond, got up on the dike and got really squirrely and then tumbled back into the water and died. And I'm just like sitting there by myself, like, what just happened? Like it just happened so fast.
How big is that thing?
It's a 118 and 2/8 gross.
Holy
and then 110 and an 1/8 net. So it makes Boone and Crockett all time. It makes Pope and Young record book. Obviously, it was number 17 in the world at the time, and now I think it's like number 35. So like wow. after I shot it, I was by myself and I had my four-wheeler. Well, the four-wheeler I was using down there, and I jumped on the radio to let Jay know because I was with Jay Scott. I was like, "Hey Jay, like I just shot a buck." And he's like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like, congrats, you got one with the bow." And he's like, "How big is it?" I'm like, "I don't know. I've never seen a coos deer before. I have no idea." He's like, "Well, how big is like the frame?" And I'm like, "It's 11-inch G2s, and they're bladed." He's like, "11-inch G2s? That's impossible." He's like, "You talking about the main?" He's like, "Are you talking about the main beam?" I'm like, "Jay, I know what a G2 is." Like, no, it's 11-inch G2s. He's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's wide. It's got tine length everywhere." He's like, "I need to see this thing like right now. Like, how big is it? How many inches? How many inches is the main beam? What's the eye guard like?" He was just throwing out all sorts of specs, and like everyone started freaking out. Like I just killed something giant. And I go back to the ranch house, and finally everyone else got done hunting, and it was just like paparazzi going off. Like everyone was just like blown away, looking at the deer, taking photos with the deer. Like Brady, you don't know what you just shot. This could be like top 10 in the world.
Wow.
And I had no clue at all what I just did.
What's crazy is those things have such a small body. So when they have big horns like that, they just look enormous. You know, I never realized, even after hunting them because I didn't kill one. I think I killed one on my 5th trip hunting them with a bow. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize how small their bodies are until you walk up on one. Like they're literally the size of a dog.
Yeah. After I shot it, you could literally grab its rack and pick it up, guts in, and like move it around and set it back down again. They're tiny.
Yeah. They're just the small target too. God, the vitals
super
on those
small
things,
target.
The vitals on those things are tiny. So like taking long shots on those things. Now that I've killed one, man, I don't know, man. I don't know that I would shoot over. I shot mine at 35. That'd probably 35, 40 would be about it. I don't know. Taking a 50-yard shot on those things is probably a very good idea because you're basically shooting at a big dog.
Yeah, you really are.
And they jump. They're jumpy bastards. That's cool, man.
I really wish we were filming it though. That was like, because they were down there filming Jason on his hunt, like Nate Simmons was. So like I was just off by myself, but like just sitting in that blind, and I visualize in my head right now the coos are jumping up in the air, landing in the pond, running across the pond. My arrow was literally stuck in the pond because it was like dreading the edge of the pond feeding, and then goes up on the dike and rolls and falls in. It's like just unbelievable how a hunt can go from like the worst of the worst, like basically delaminating my bow and have to resight it on cow patties, to shooting one of the world's biggest coos deer ever.
Did they know about that buck?
No, they never. They actually called that tank before because it's like a little pond. They called it a lion tank. So they said, "Oh, we've only gotten pictures of mountain lions there, but it's like it looks like great coos deer habitat. 'Cause it's actually up in the mountains. There's big mountains behind it, so it just looks like a place a big old buck would be. Like, yeah, we've never really had any bucks there, but we've had mountain lions. But it just seems like right now they're kind of ruddy. You see some general deer in the area, like, yeah, go sit that tank. And then now, like, Dar hit me up the other day, another guy with Jay Scott. He's like, yeah, we now call that Brady's tank. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Is this where you got when we hunted in Colorado together, you were like super duper patient on the water. Yeah, so I think this is where you gained your confidence from the water, is just the Brady tank in Mexico.
Yep. I was willing to sit it out that whole entire time on our antelope hunt and sit water. I think it's so fun too, because like, I did grow up in the Midwest, so I hunted in the tree stands quite a bit, but then sitting in water in Mexico, sitting in Colorado, it's like I just enjoy watching animals sometimes. And sometimes it's just fun to be in a blind and watch nature just be nature. Mm-hmm. You can watch the birds do their thing. watch the coyotes come in, watch antelope from really far away. I'm still glassing. Sometimes I put my tripod up when I'm in the blind, or my tripod and spotter. It's like, I think it's fun.
That's why I like tree stand hunting. I like Lampers. It drives him absolutely insane when he hears about that. Like, he texted me when I was blacktail hunting this year, and he's like, dude, that looks so boring. He's like, get the hell out of that stand and go shoot one of those things. But I actually enjoy it. Only if there's something in a reasonable amounts of time that I can see. So like my blacktail deer stand, if I don't have deer for a few hours, even just does, I do start getting pretty antsy. But if I have consistent, even like my blacktail stand, I got raccoons, I got coyotes, I got does. The big bucks you rarely see. I mean, chances are you're not going to see one of them. But it stays interesting, and the fact that you're not like blowing your lungs out and murdering yourselves on the mountain, you're just relaxing, looking at wildlife, and if something comes in, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to kill it. So
exactly,
yeah, the odds are low they're coming in, but the odds are really high if they do that I'm going to kill them. So I don't know. I enjoy it. I'm actually this next year I'm going to go back to Kansas and hunt whitetails again. I love that stuff, man. I
haven't told anyone, so this would be the first time anyone's heard it, but like I recently picked up a bow again, and over Christmas I took my bow back to Minnesota, and I picked up a non-resident deer tag and was trying to bow hunt whitetails back in Minnesota over Christmas.
How'd you like it?
I really missed it. Like, cause like I was telling my dad and my mom, cause like my parents, my dad has this little property. It's like 170 acres in like northern Minnesota. It's kind of like his little baby. My mom loves it too. They have built a little cabin on it, a little shed, and they just manage it for whitetails. And so like I've gone back in the summer before and like helped my dad manage it, plant some food plots, work on the corn, like check trail cameras and stuff. And like I do miss, like every single night we were like talking about, oh, Brady, the wind's going to do this in the morning. Which stand do you want to go in? Like, should we try to go after this buck that's been kind of hanging out over here? Do we go over there? Well, you can't go over there because of wind. If you want to do that stand, you have to hike all around the property, come all the way in. It's going to take you like, an hour to get over there. My dad's like, you have to walk super quietly. You have to take your time. You need to be in the stand like 2 hours before sun gets up. I'm like, oh gosh, like a lot of stuff going on, but like that planning and logistics and talking to him about it. And then just getting up in a stand again and like just sitting there all morning and like having squirrels. I've totally forgot about the dang squirrels all the time in the Midwest, but like all the time I hear something like rustling in the leaves. I'm like, oh, here's a buck behind me. And I get my bow ready and I look back and like, it's a squirrel. And it's like, I forgot about that sort of thing because I used to, deal with squirrels all the time in Minnesota, like constantly feeling like they were deer. And then you see a deer and I'm like, my gosh, there's a deer over there. And then one evening I had a buck at like 100 yards. There's a really good 5x5, one that they actually passed up with the rifle, but they said I could probably shoot it if it came with my bow. And he was at 100 yards away. And I'm like, and he never wanted to come any closer. And that's when I was like, gosh, I wish I could get out of my stand right now and go put a stock on this thing. Because he was just like, he's just walking around. And I was like, I feel like helpless, but it's like you said, like it could happen any second. He could come in, but it's like, I'm locked in this little stand and can't do anything. And here's this buck 100 yards away that I finally saw. Just never came in.
Dude, this blacktail I was hunting, we'd seen him on trail camera in the daylight, maybe a couple times. But so your odds are like low, like I said. Like, you're just there's a friend of mine, actually Brent Hahn, he owns Valkyrie Archery. He told me he's a really good blacktail hunter. He's like, he spent years figuring it out. And he told me, he's like, dude, the buck you want to kill is going to show up like 2 or 3 times during the daylight for a whole month. And you're not going to be able to predict. I'll give you like a date range when it's probably going to happen, but you just got to be in your stand when it happens. You can't be like, oh, he came by my camera 2 days ago, therefore I have better odds. That's not the way it works. Yeah. You gotta actually be there. Anyways, the first freaking time I sit in my stand this year, I'd been waiting. We finally got a couple daylight pictures of him. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. I get in there at like noon. So I'm like, I got probably a few hours before anything happens. I'm going to kind of get my bearings, range all my things. And I'm sitting there, and I think I was looking at my phone, and I look behind me, and I see a white face coming through the ferns behind me. And I look, I'm like, oh, God, it's that buck. Already, it was at 1 o'clock. I'm like, shit. So the theory with blacktails is, since they're not hunted with out of tree stands very often, is that they don't look up. Everybody says they don't look up. They don't look up.
That too.
Not true. Not where I am at. I'm like, oh, he's not going to look up. So he was like walking towards me, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get an arrow on, and I'll just slowly stand up. And I did that, and it worked. He didn't look at me, so I'm like, all right. And he starts to come, but then he kind of turns, and he's going to come out at like 40 yards, which is a long shot out of a tree stand at a blacktail through holes in the brush and stuff. But I'm like, well, if he just stands there and gives me a little bit of time, I'm going to try it. And so I go to get my rangefinder. When I'm pulling my rangefinder out, it just barely tinks my safety harness. And that buck just laser beamed right into my eyeballs. And he totally knew what I was. You could just tell. He looked at me. He's like, oh, shit, that sucker. He's in that tree. And he turned and he bolted. That deer never came back by that stand when I was there. He came back by when I wasn't there. But I know for a fact, at least my theory is he probably, because you could see it from like 100 yards away, I guarantee he looked up there every time. And then I learned that the does, especially the mature does, and even some of the small bucks, they all looked up. I couldn't get away with any movement. So anybody that tells people that blacktails don't look up, at least where I hunt them, they look up. So
they were all talking in the evening, and then they told each other what's going on.
And then every time I would not be in the stand, all these nice bucks would come by. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just hunting a herd of deer that they hadn't hunted this farm very hard in recent years and never had a tree stands that I'm aware of. So I don't know, dude. But tree stands hunting it has its own challenges. I think people don't respect it because it doesn't have the physical challenges and maybe not some of the aspects of adventure like going to Alaska or going to the Rockies has, which I agree with that. But I will say, like, trying to kill one of those big bucks, especially if you have to figure it out yourself, you're not just flying in and jumping in a tree stand that someone else figured out. It's really hard, dude.
I can see it's being so challenging. Like you're saying, like, my parents have this property. My dad and my brothers, like, all hunt it all the time. They have trail cameras. They even have some cell cameras. And it's like, even with all their knowledge and cell cameras and stuff, it's hard to like to actually get a buck, even on private land. And like, the neighbors, they hunt as well. So it's like, there's a lot of hunting pressure going on, but like the deer weren't doing the same things 2 days in a row. We didn't have the weather in Minnesota that they normally have. Like last year I was there, I didn't buy a tag. There was like 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. It was 5 degrees out in December. Like, so the deer had to come, to certain food plots every single night. But this year there was literally no snow. They had like there's an awesome acorn crop. So there's acorns everywhere in the timber. So like my dad's like, I bet the bucks are just laying down all day, just eating acorns. And then finally one chance that buck did come out. It's like, it was 100 yards away. But like the coolest thing though, I remember was like, I had a first group of does come in and I was sitting in the stand. My heart was racing uncontrollably. Like,
that's
just the coolest feeling that I haven't had that feeling in quite a while because I don't bow hunt a lot anymore. But I think it was maybe because like just like throwing it back to like Minnesota days when I was very young, because I was in high school when I was bow hunting back then. But like it was just uncontrollably, and I wasn't even going to shoot a doe, but I just kept thinking in my head like maybe there's a buck somewhere nearby, maybe all these deer are going to come out and go into the field, and eventually there'd be movement. But like my heart was just racing, having these does like 16 yards in front of me. And I'm like, I guarantee they see me. If they run right now, the woods is not that big in this corner, and the buck might be bedded 200 yards away, and he's going to hear that commotion and run away. And I was just like frozen, not moving, not trying to lock eyes with these does. I could tell they're kind of looking up at me, looking down. Like, just my heart was just pounding. And it was like the coolest feeling ever. Afterwards, like, dude, this is why you hunt right here. Like, it's, even though I'm not going to shoot a doe, I'm just watching them. That was like the highlight. And I go back and tell my dad, my mom that. My mom's like, that's so cool. You saw all those does. And I'm like, it was a great night in the stand.
Well, dude, even when you're in the antelope stand, if you look up on the horizon and you see ears coming, I don't care if it's a doe or a buck, your heart's like, oh God, this is working.
It's going to happen.
You lose confidence in between, like in those intervals. You're like, I don't know. This is probably like you're sitting in the middle of the fucking desert. Yeah. And this little puddle and nothing's come in, but then you see ears and you're like, oh, it's going to work. That means a buck might come too. Dude, I was thinking about, I spent a lot of money and time on trail cameras this year for the first time in my life because of this blacktail thing. I did use them on elk too, just because it's fun trying to get a picture of a big bull. But here's my main learning from trail cameras, and I want to get your perspective on this. I think if you chase the cameras, like if you chase the picture and the cameras, you're not hunting right. That's and I know this because I've done it. You're like, I went out and checked the cameras, and shit, he was here last night at 3, which means I better be at that stand. Like, you start going crazy, especially if you have a lot of them out.
Mm-hmm.
But here, so I think the cameras for me, the main purpose they serve in my hunting life is they give me confidence to know that the type of animals that I want to hunt are there.
Mm-hmm.
Past that, I think they're a distraction, and I think they actually have negative impact to my success.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they actually help that much past that, because have you ever heard the phrase chasing the bite in fishing? Like,
yeah. Yep.
It's like when you're like, I'm going to go fish X hole tomorrow, but then you get a text from your buddy that another river 3 hours away, somebody caught a fish there, and you go there instead. And then you learn that where you were going to go, it was really good, and where you went was bad. That's called chasing the bite. I think you end up chasing the bite with trail cameras more than not. So I think next year I'll still probably do it because it's fun. Mm-hmm. But I'm just going to be like, okay, because with blacktails, dude, 75-80% of the bucks, actually almost all the bucks that were on this farm, I didn't know they existed until we put cameras up, because they never showed themselves. We were shocked.
Yep, that's what's wild.
How many bucks were there? We were shocked. I would have bet there was going to be like 5 bucks there. There was about 20.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way about the camera thing, based on what I hear from my dad and my brothers, because like even when I was there in Minnesota during Christmas, I was chasing the bite. Like you get a cell camera picture of the other part of the property at night, and then like maybe it would be like an hour before daylight in the morning. Then my brother texts me like, "Oh, you need to go sit in the other stand. Like that buck showed up on that camera over there." So I go sit over there, and then like the actual buck I wanted to be would show up on the other stand over there. So it's like you're just moving around for no reason when you're chasing a camera.
Yeah. Just stick to a strategy. And I could, with elk especially, it's no bueno, man, because elk are too. And I know this from personal experience the last couple of years, because I've played with camera more on the elk side, and elk move too much, especially. Well, most places they move a lot. Now, some of these Roseville elks, don't move as much, but they still move. So, like, my dad told me when I was young, in some of these areas that we hunt, if you're in fresh sign, you're a day late. And I think that's the problem that I have with cameras in terms of planning your day around your cameras. Like, I feel like it's like, I know my bull is in this basin. I know there's a bull in this basin that's big or whatever, a buck. I'm just going to hunt it as if I didn't have cameras and just hunt it the right way. And I'm going to stay consistent, because if I know that I do this consistent strategy long enough, I'm going to get that bull, as opposed to you just get so flustered and confused, man.
Yep. Yeah, it's good for inventory, I think, only. But other than that, it's like,
yeah.
False hope using cameras.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? So when I was back home from Minnesota, I was going up. My brother has this like shed and upper level. It's like all my old like stuff from like high school and elementary school. My mom saved for years. So I was like going through a bunch of these boxes. She's like, you need to go through these boxes and figure out what you want to throw away and keep. My mom has like report cards and like my first art drawings, like everything my mom's kept from school. But I have some like hunting boxes and some like sports boxes up there. So I was going through some of my hunting boxes. I found my first trail camera I ever had. It was an old 35 millimeter trail camera, like an actual camera with film with big giant batteries. And I saved it for so many years. And my dad was up there with me too, because he wanted to see all the junk we had. And I showed it to my dad. I was like, look at this old trail camera. It's literally like 12 inches tall, like 8 inches wide, takes like 15D batteries, just like this biggest trail camera ever. So I took a couple pictures on my cell phone with it, and I was like, Dad, I'm throwing it away. And he's like, yeah, throw it away. And I get back here to go hunt. And everyone's like, what? You threw that old trail camera away? Like, it would have been so cool to hang in your house. I'm like, what am I going to do with a silly old trail camera from Minnesota hanging in my house? It doesn't look cool. It doesn't look like anything. It just looks like a box with a little eye from the camera on it. I threw it away, and everyone's like, gosh, why'd you throw that away, Brady? Like, I don't know. Do you think I should have kept it?
I probably would have got rid of it. Dude, I hate...
Like, I don't want to be a pack rat. Like, I have so much stuff.
Dude,
it's kind of cool, because I do remember, like, one of the biggest Minnesota bucks I ever killed, I got on that trail camera of that film camera back in the day. I didn't know I had a picture of him until after I killed him, because it's 35 millimeter film. You have to go develop it.
No way.
I do have a picture of a buck I killed with 35 mil film camera.
That's crazy, man.
So that part of it's kind of cool too. But at least I still have the picture. But like, what am I going to do with a physical old trail camera?
It's funny how far along with technology we've come, and all the debates that happen. And I'm part of a lot of those debates. But there's one thing that always comes back to me, which is there's nothing that replaces real skills and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have all the technology in the world, and we're talking about trail cameras right now. You could have 50 trail cameras out on a property. That doesn't necessarily make. The Altitude Show is brought to you by GoHunt.com. GoHunt.com is the place for all things hunting. And the coolest thing is that their app now incorporates not just maps, but also some of the key features from the website, including draw odds, harvest success, public land percentage in an area, trophy potential, weapon season type, season dates, all incorporated into the app. They know that most of you, like me, are using your smartphone most of the time. You're not on your desktop. So they brought all these features over into the Go Hunt app to make the experience for you as a hunter just a little bit more convenient. So go check it out. If you're not a member of Go Hunt, you should be. It's an incredible service. Go become an insider. Use my code Altitude. You'll get a discount, and you will also become a better hunter. So go become a Go Hunt member, and you'll be able to use the same features that you use on their website right there on your app, and along with your maps. So use code Altitude. Helps the show make that big bull or that big buck easier to kill. It might, I guess, maybe in total make it a little bit easier because he's there. Therefore, you have confidence, and maybe but you still have to have the skill set to harvest that animal. And so, like, whether we're talking about this new sight on bows or this long range rifle or this or that or the other thing, what you'll notice is the same people are consistently taking the best animals every year, no matter what the technology does. And it's the same across. If you like, let's take that same conversation to other sports, right? Maybe let's talk about skiing.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have the newest skis doesn't make you a great skier, or the best jacket or the best goggles. The best fishing rod, the best reel, the best lures, the best boat. It helps a little bit, like it solves some inconveniences and things like that. But at the end of the day, like if I want to kill this bull that I missed this year, bastard, I missed him. And I had cameras on that property for 3 months, and I never got one picture of that bull. And I went there, I hunted there on September 15th and 16th. And I was in him both those days. I missed him on the 16th. I never got another picture of him again, and I never saw him again, and I have no idea where he went. And he had 35 cows, and I don't know how I can't track a frickin' buffalo stampede through the jungle, but I didn't. I lost that bull. My point is, I didn't fail or succeed because of the technology. I failed because I missed that bull. I wouldn't have known about him. Well, I didn't know about him because of the cameras or anything. I just think I had Will Primos on yesterday, and we were talking about technology and all the debates. I do think a lot of those debates are worthy, and we should have them because that's how we create
conversations for sure.
That's how we create laws and policies in a democratic country and a democracy. Mm-hmm. But I do think going back to the fundamentals of just becoming a more knowledgeable, better woodsman will always outwin technology. What do you think about that?
I would 100% agree. And I think technology, a lot of people use it as a crutch, or to see people being successful. It's like, oh, you only are successful, like you said, because of that. But you could give anyone a bow, like an older bow, and have the same guy go out there and shoot a big bull because he has all the other stuff on top of it. You can give anyone a rifle. You can have an older rangefinder, maybe even not a rangefinder, and that person will still get close enough and kill. Mm-hmm. I kind of think it back to the reasons maybe why I feel like I'm kind of successful is back in the day, my parents would just kick me outside, literally would kick me outside and say, don't come home till it's dark. I would go out there. I would trap when I was 8 years old. I had a trap line, literally had an old John boat, 12-foot John boat with a push pole. Didn't have a motor on it, just a big pole, with a little duck feet thing on the end. Push my way around the swamp and the lake trapping. So I'm learning about the woodsmanship side of it, learning, animal movement. I know trapping is a little bit different because it's in the water, but just learning all these different things and then slowly advancing into, hunting every single day when I was younger because all I wanted to do was be outside. Mm-hmm. So I do feel technology is great, and I love this technology we have right now. I love being able to shoot my rifle as far as I want during practice, and then hunting. Yeah, it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to do it, but it's knowing all the other skills on top of it. That's really why I'm successful. I read a lot of books. I think books are one of the biggest things ever. Books have been around for the longest time. Science, everything is rooted in science. So you start learning about animal behavior, you start getting that woodsmanship skills. Boom. Now you have 2 big tools in the kill box that's going to help you literally kill more animals. Not the technology. It's you putting in the time, you working on your mental game all the time, being in the gym, being stronger mentally and physically. Like, it's just really hard work. That's like the people who are successful all the time are the ones that just literally put in the work. They'll put in more work than you. It's not really a competition thing in a sense, but it's like they're grinding every single day to be better at what they're doing, just like sports people are. People are best at the sports game. They're just practicing more. Like you're saying, the ski analogy, they're just more working on their techniques.
Doing it longer and doing it longer, and they're just better at it. Dude, I think prime example in my own life was this year in Montana. I had a rifle tag. Long story short, I've never done any long range training. I'm kind of also a rifle hunter, not a rifle hunter. I do it because it extends my season. I actually really enjoy it. And I shoot really well at like normal distances, 200, 300, out to 400, but I don't practice any further than that. Long story short, there was these bulls coming out in this opening, and the closest I could get to that opening was about 540 to 560. And there was this one bull I wanted to kill, and I spent an evening at 540. Long story short, he finally came out at 540, but I was on a really there was no great rest spot. Like, it was just not ideal, but I was good enough to where I thought I could make the shot. Anyways, I missed that bull 4 times, and this is a big bodied bastard. I mean, he's a mature bull. I have no idea to this day how I cleanly missed him. I had a spotter. We could see it hitting. I kept hitting just in front of him or just over him. I don't know if there was more wind in the canyon. I'm not sure. Point being, I went back to my camp that night, and I told my dad about it, and on text message, and he goes, "Why are you trying to shoot that far?" And I go, "Well, I can't get any closer." He's like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Dude, you're a bow hunter. Go over there and shoot that elk." And I'm like, "Oh, you make a good point. If this was bow season, I wouldn't even think about anything else. I would just go over there and kill that elk." So I laid in bed that night. I'm like, "Oh my God, my dad's he's brilliant." And so I'm like, I texted him back. I'm like, "I'm going to go over there and bow hunt that bull tomorrow." So I got up there an hour before daylight, and it was fogged in and raining. So I was pissed off because the weather was shitty. Anyways, I snuck up into that opening. Long story short, I still hunted all morning, and I came up on that bull in his bed at 40 yards looking the other way, and I shot him at 40 yards bedded with a 300 Weatherby mag offhand.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I was laying over that bull going, why didn't I just do that in the first place? When I spotted him over there the first time, I could have, that evening when I missed him at 540, all I would have had to do is go get the wind right and sit in that opening with a 100-yard shot. Like, it wouldn't even have been that hard. But it didn't even cross my mind. And the reason it didn't cross my mind is because this is another reason I think technology hinders people sometimes. I thought, well, my gun's got a dial on it, and I know it shoots good out, at that range. I'm just going to I'm going to stop as soon as I'm anywhere within rifle range. Yeah. And that's just kind of really a shitty way to think about it.
It's 100% a bad way to look at it.
It was a huge learning for me, even though I've been hunting for 37 years. Still learning these big ass-kicking lessons. It's like, dude, you idiot, just go over there and shoot that bull under 100 yards. It's not rocket science. They were out there every evening.
That's something that I think is very beneficial. And I've told a few people this before. It's like you're saying, being a bow hunter first, I think is so beneficial for your long-term hunting success. Yes. You learn all those failures when you're at the first time you're out hunting. You learn how to stalk an animal, you learn how to use the wind, you learn all the behavior of an animal with a bow, and then you pick up a rifle, something that you can extend your range, but you keep doing what you just said. You keep using those bow hunting techniques, but now you have a weapon in your hand that's a little more precise. So it just makes that transition a lot easier. Like, every time I go out hunting right now, I'm like, yeah, I could probably shoot from right here, but I know how to stalk around the mountain. I know how to work the ridge line to get out to the area where I can shoot, because I've had to do it bow hunting before, thinking about like, if I get to this ridge, there's a cliff, buck's bed on the other side. Where does that cliff potentially look like? Well, there's a bunch of trees on it. So for me, it's like, and there's a brush in front of it. So probably I can't actually take a shot from right there, because I realized if I was a bow hunter, I wouldn't be able to do that. So just thinking like how the lay of the land works, even when I'm trying to set up for a rifle shot, like being a bow hunter first has helped me immensely at being a proficient rifle hunter.
Are you always trying to get as close as you can with your rifle?
Most of the time, I would say yes, 100%. But I do the thing too, where I'm like, I'm sitting right here. I know I can just get right there and I can take the shot.
Yeah.
Like if it's 700 yards, maybe 800 yards, I know if I get there, I can shoot.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, well, yeah, like you said, I might not actually be able to get closer. So, I shoot a lot. And so I feel like I'm very confident of just going right there and taking the shot on it. But like, I still always want to get closer. Like, like even this year when I took my brothers out, we were hunting, mule deer together as a family. And I shot my buck when I shoot my buck at 350 yards, which is very, very close for me. My brother shot his at 200 yards. And both those bucks, we could have, my buck especially, we could have shot a lot further distance. It's like, let's just sneak in. Like, I know what the topography is like. I know where he's at right now. He can't slip away from us. So we have all the time in the world. We can just get right to this little ridge, look down, and boom, we ended up coming up right the hill and shot him at what I consider a very close distance. But it's fun. Like that point of it, I love. Like I said, when the does came in, your heart starts racing. Like the stalk is so fun to me. Like I always want to go on a stalk. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm a rifle hunter. I'm proficient. I can shoot it at 1,000 yards on the range. I'm just going to lay down at 800 yards and take a shot. Like, yeah, sometimes that's fun, but it's like, I love a stalk. I love a stalk.
Yeah.
I love things kind of weird. I love when you go and do a stalk and you bump a doe and you're like, oh crap. Like I just bumped that doe. Now that doe's alert. It's not from the doe group with my mule deer, but let's bump that doe this way. Let's try to make that doe run the other way. So now you're running down the cane and try to spook it a different way. And like, okay, that worked out. Now you go to the next little ridge and try to do the same thing. Like getting close with the rifle is still very, very doable.
It's actually really fun too. Like when I came around that tree and I saw his eye guards laying there and he had no clue I was there, I'm like, oh, this is very high odds here. You know what I mean? If I could screw this up still, but it feels good. I think it's funny too. Like you switched, like let's just say I had a bow in my hands and I spotted that bull. At first I spotted him at like 1,200 yards. I wouldn't even have, like I could almost have, well, I know I could. I could have ran as fast as I could to 150 yards without spooking that bull.
Yeah.
But it didn't even cross my mind. I'm like, I ranged the bull and then I ranged that one opening across from him. I'm like, oh, I can just shoot him from 500 yards. But I'm like, that's just a stupid way to think.
It is a really dumb way to think. And I think that's the hard part too nowadays though. It's like you have these weapons or whatever that can shoot really far. And I think that's where technology is kind of scary and bad because people have these high expectations like, oh yeah, I can just pick up this gun and it'll shoot. And I have this rangefinder that can range as far as it needs to go. Angle compensates and does all the dope for me. Everything's dialed, takes all the atmospheric conditions, but they don't ever practice with it or they assume that it's just you lay down, press the trigger and it's a done deal where it's like, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Oh,
even a bow nowadays too. You like adjustable sights, dial. I can dial to 90 yards. It's like, there's a lot more when that arrow's in flight to think about. A lot more when that bullet's in flight. And once a bullet is in the air, you can't get that back. Like if you hit an animal bad, it's like that's the worst feeling in the world. Like that bullet's in the air.
And it's very difficult to get. Like let's just say you shoot 1,000 yards or 700 yards. Like luckily that night I missed that bull 4 times. I had a spotter and a spotting scope. Like if he wouldn't have been with me that night, I wouldn't have known if I'd hit that bull or not.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm shooting a big gun. I'm not like the scope's not staying on the bull. And I know people love to pretend that they can watch the bullet hit through the scope with a 300 Magnum. My hat's off to you. I can't. So when that bull walked into the timber, I could tell he wasn't hit and I could hear it. And I'm experienced enough to know he wasn't hit. But I think there's a lot of people that hit animals shooting that far that never go look for them because they don't fall over. And no one ever talks about that, but I think that's just the truth.
Yeah. It's like if people take shots way out of their comfort zone, they do everything bad. Like, I don't know. It's like if you have any sort of weapon, I think rifle hunters are kind of the worst because I hear a lot of people do it. I'm not just blanket statement here, but it's like, they're like, oh yeah, my rifle is sighted in from last year. I'm good. They shoot like a week before they go on the rifle hunt and that's it. They don't
want to waste ammo.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that one. I'm like, dude.
Yeah. It's the cheapest investment you can ever make in your hunting skills. Like if you're actually going to go on even a whitetail hunt, but if you're going to go on a mountain hunt out west and you haven't practiced with your rifle and you just think, oh, I was dialed in from last year. I'm going to shoot a week before the season. I want to hit a pie plate at 100 yards. Like, do you realize how big a pie plate at 100 yards is? Like that's giant. And you stretch it out to 300 yards. Where's your group's going to be at then? They're going to start spraying and opening up and like doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And you don't know how to control your breathing. you've never ran up a mountain and laid down and tried to practice that situation, you don't know how to set up on a bipod, like you're going to miss then. And those are the people like, oh yeah, I bought a custom rifle and it can shoot groups out to 1,000, but you've never actually practiced it. And you never actually shot it 300, 400, 200.
Right.
But the same thing you said too, though, like you're saying, like sometimes if I try to get closer, well, sometimes I feel like the animals kind of know you're there. And if I do get closer, that could be a scary, risky situation too. Like someone could easily miss a shot at 200 yards, or if I just lay down at 5 and I have all the time in the world, I can grab the wind, I can do whatever, I can watch the animal be an animal. I feel like sometimes I'm more lethal at 5 than I could be at 2 because I'm so close. Animal gets up and runs. Well, what's the first natural instinct of anyone? To probably try to take a shot, even though you know you shouldn't. And so you're going to take a pop shot and then you might wound an animal, where if you're further away, you can let the situation play out, let nature be nature. And then when the time's right, when the animal gets out of bed, everything's perfect. You've been laying there for 3 hours and you just press the trigger and make a perfect shot.
In archery hunting, I would much rather have a 25-yard shot than like a 10-yard shot because of that reason. Even a 35-yard shot, if the animal is calm and not looking at me, like an elk, specifically elk, like sometimes 40 is my favorite on elk, especially if they don't know I'm there, because if they get too close and that adrenaline level and your heart rate's in your throat, and I think a lot of people make mistakes at close range because they're like, oh my God, he's so close, I can't miss. And they don't take their time and boom, you shoot him in the shoulder or whatever. But at 40, if he's relaxed and I'm a lot more relaxed, I'm going to take my time and make a better shot. Now, I've also made bad shots at 40. I'm not perfect at all, but I do think sometimes there is that happy medium. And maybe with a rifle, for me, it's like 200 to 300. Right? It's like, it's just far enough to where I know I'm not going to spook them because I could get a lot closer than this if I had my bow, but it's just close enough that I know that the odds are pretty high I'm going to hit within 2 inches or 3 inches of what I'm putting the gun on, no matter even if I jerk the trigger a little bit. So it's, dude, I grew up in the old days of rifle hunting where people were like guessing all kinds of stuff. Like my grandpa and my dad, they used to tell me so many stories like, oh yeah, I shot a buck over on that ridge one day and I just put it in the bottom of the scope and pulled the trigger and it fell over. You know what I mean? But it's so much more complicated than that now, in a good way, meaning people have figured out how to do these things. But if you don't have the knowledge to do that, which I have not gone through all of those things, then you probably shouldn't just shoot that far. And even with a bow, dude, I just got a new bow from Bowtech and that I've been setting up. There's a lot to know about a bow, a 100%. Compound bow. Even a recurve bow, there's a lot to know about it. Brace height and knock points and how, FOC and all these things. It's an all year project. It's not something you can just pick up a week before the season and frickin' go. That's so short-sighted for yourself and the animal.
I want to touch back on something you just said too about like people back in the day, like, oh yeah, I just held 6 inches above his back and slammed the trigger and tried to shoot at a deer or an elk. This, and you're trying to like, oh yeah, hold it mid rack and you're going to hit the animal. Like, see, everyone talks about nowadays people are taking way too far shots, doing everything else, but we do have the technology to dial. We can be more precise. But this has been going on forever. People taking shots further than what they were capable of. Like that might have been a 300-yard shot with a 300 Win mag back in the day, and people are still like, oh yeah, I need to aim 6 inches above his back and slam the trigger and try to shoot this thing. Like people are always shooting past their means. It's not like a new thing lately at all. But it's like now we have the means to be more precise and practice to make a better ethical shot. But
they actually might have been shooting further back then, because some of the shots my dad and those guys used to tell me stories about, I bet you if you range some of those shots, you'd be shocked how far they were, dude.
Like back in the day when they barely had rangefinders.
They didn't have it. Well, they didn't have rangefinders. Like I'm talking like in the 70s, like the heyday of Oregon mule deer hunting and blacktail hunting. Like if you have to, if the deer is in the bottom of the scope on a 7 mag, like how far is that? What do you think? 1,000 yards?
Oh, on the bottom of the scope?
Yeah, like at literally the bottom of the scope.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be at least 800,000 yards.
Yeah, it's a long shot.
And everything back in the day, too. Like I remember my first 300 Win mag that my dad set up for me. It was a 3 to 9 powered Redfield scope. 9 power. Like that's max. Most of my scopes nowadays start around there. Like some of my scopes are like 6 to 36 power. We're talking about a giant magnitude jump up and just magnification. And back in the day, it was 3 to 9. And so like, you're not really able to see a lot of details. And it's like, oh yeah, hold it 3 inches above his back. I remember going out west the first time. My dad kept saying like, oh yeah, sighted in dead on at 100 yards or 3 inches high at 100. You're basically dead on at 300, but we never shot at 300. We never really practiced a lot until we started finally getting into that. But we just assumed like, oh yeah, 3 inches high at 100 for out west, you're good. And then just hold above his back. That was such a bad way to go about things, but that's just what you did because you didn't know any better.
It just was what it was, And they killed, dude, my dad and his friends killed some giant mule deer. Wow. Like those days in this specific area of Oregon still to this day are like, they're all over the record books. That area just had amazing genetics. And they used to go over to this area and they'd shoot 25 bucks in 5 days. And all of them were nice. Beautiful bucks, and obviously it's never come back from that because Oregon's or not just because of them. There's a lot of other factors, but it definitely didn't help over harvesting. But they didn't know any better. But man, I would love to go back to those days with what we know now. Oh yeah, I think we would just be in heaven, man.
Yeah, even like if I could just go and be a fly on the wall and watch some of my dad's hunting trips back in the day, like just seeing how they did things, like. Without GPS technology for public-private. Like my dad's trying to walk me through it the other day. He's like, yeah, we just all had these printed maps and would go out. And I was even in the stage where I had some printed maps before like GPSs, but like they were kind of going off nothing because like you couldn't just go to a sportsman's warehouse and get a printed map. It was like a big deal to go to like a county, get a plat map and go out there and do that. Like
what do they call those what do they call those stores that you get map? Is it a standard store? There's some type of store where you can go get a printed map. It's not even the county. It's some store. We have one in Salem, Oregon, where my dad's like, yeah, you just got to go down to the thing and get this. I'm like, dude, I've never heard of anything like that. But yeah, man, it's changed a lot. But I do think that we're living in a. They would love to see. My grandpa would probably love all the toys and knickknacks we have now. Like I remember following my dad and grandpa, back in the day, and like their red plaid. Wool flannel jackets, wool pants, cork boots, like those flappy hats, the wooden stock Remingtons 700s, and they killed a lot of shit back in the day with that. I mean, it's the same old story, but we are where we are.
They didn't just kill with technology back then. They killed because of other skills that they had, and they had technology that 30 years prior that those other people didn't have. So they probably thought they were like, wow, we have way too much technology right now. And
the scope. I mean, the rifle scope, right? Like they probably, those nice, my dad still has, in fact, I might have one here at my house, but my dad still loves his old, what was it called? Oh, Redfield scope that he has on his 7 mag. And he said he hasn't had to sight it in since the 70s and it still shoots dead on, Yeah. He loves that.
Yeah. But I remember scopes weren't round. They were like oblong shape, like oval kind of like.
Oh yeah.
Like I bought a bunch of scopes like that back in the day.
Really?
That just weren't round. It's like a weird horizontal view on them.
What's your favorite rifle for mule deer? Same question for elk. Not brand necessarily, but
cartridge?
Like caliber, cartridge.
Yeah. So this is going to go against traditional wisdom by far. But like my dad was always growing up, my dad was in like, race cars and big motors and just building the biggest and baddest thing. And so like, even when we were in Minnesota, we would literally whitetail hunt with a 300 Win Mag.
Wow.
In tree stands. My dad was like, there's no replacement for displacement. Like you can't kill a deer, more dead than dead. So it's like a 300 Win Mag is going to literally, you make a perfect shot, it's going to kill it. But in hunting, things just aren't sunshine and roses. Like you eventually might make a bad shot or do something weird and like, you got to do the buck steps, and even though it was perfect, it wasn't a far shot, but like something weird's going to happen.
Right.
With the bigger cartridge, you still have enough, the quote knockdown power everyone talks about. You still have enough power and energy to knock that animal down. So I've always shot big guns, 30 cals. Like I just love a big rifle. I don't mind recoil at all. I feel like to me, it's like, I owe it to the animal to kill it as best I can, as quick as I can. Sure, I could kill I could probably go out and kill an elk with, a 22 or 223, whatever, the minimum thing that's legal, but it's like, is that right? Is that right? Or if I just use a big rifle that I'm confident where if I have to take a shot, I hit that animal, let's say I'm shooting at an elk and I need to take a backup shot. Well, what if I hit that elk And it goes into the timber and I can't take a backup shot, but I was using a lesser cartridge.
Right.
Well, that animal run now really far and I might not be able to find it till that meat spoils. Where if I shot a 300 Win mag or something bigger, that animal's going to be sick. It's going to be, really hurt, might break a bunch of bones on the exit, and that animal might only go 50 yards and bed down and then slowly die right there, and I'll be able to recover the meat. So I shoot in big guns. So I'm a 300 Win mag, like I said, but my all-time favorite cartridge now is definitely a 300 Remington Ultra Mag.
Okay.
And I'm the type of person too that I don't like having multiple cartridges of guns because I reload everything. So it's like more money I have to spend in reloading dies, reloading components. So like when I drew a Nevada antelope tag a couple years ago, I shot the antelope with a 300 Win mag because it's like what I'm used to. So it's like I'll just use one cartridge for everything. So
that's a really good way to look at it. Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it.
I get so used to shooting the same cartridge constantly. I know what it does in the wind. I know how it reacts to, a little bit more shoulder pressure. I know when I'm sitting behind it, if I'm sitting uncomfortably, I know how to make it do what it needs to do because I've shot it so much. I've shot it so much hunting. I've shot so much at the range. I know exactly what that bullet is. I know if it's me, if it's a gun, if I knock something off, I know how to work on it to, make it shoot what it needs to do. And I just trust that. Like, yeah, sure, it's fun. My dad keeps saying, like, oh, you need to get some more cartridges. You need to try one of these 7 PRCs, these trendy things, a 6.5 PRC. Just try them out. And I'm like, why? Like, my gun shoots great. And yeah, I do understand, like, meat waste can be a thing. Like, if I just take my 300 rum and go shoot a mule deer and I aim it right at the shoulder at 100 yards, yeah, I'm going to lose a metric ton of meat and I don't want that. So I just understand based on distance where I'm going to, aim at that animal to not waste a bunch of meat. So like that should definitely be a consideration people do it. Like if I shoot something bigger, you're going to lose more meat if you hit them in certain places. Yeah. But like I said, that upside is hunting's not sunshine and roses, and things could happen.
Yeah, I shot my rifle blacktail this year with my 300 Weatherby, and luckily I hit it right behind the shoulder, and it came out in front of the rear quarter. So like, but the hole is massive. There's no way. I got really lucky. I did not lose any meat on that buck. But I could totally see the argument for shooting smaller deer with smaller calibers for sure. But I'm not a gun guy. I'm kind of like you in the sense, except for you are a gun guy. You know everything about it. I know just enough to be proficient and be an ethical hunter, and that's about it. I need, one of my goals this year is to do a long range school. I really want to do one. I want to learn more about that. Not because I want to shoot long range, but because I think it'd be fun on targets, but I want to learn my weapon more. I want to know what its capabilities are. Regardless, I think that the idea for me, I do the same thing with my bow. Once I find a bow setup that works, I'm not using a different bow for different species. I use the same bow at least 2 years, maybe 3. Same arrow, same broadhead, because I want to know my weapon inside and out, and I don't want the stress of constantly switching. I think a lot of people do that because they enjoy it. They enjoy tinkering, and that's totally fine. I don't. I like once something's set up, I want to learn it intimately, and I know when I pull it out of the case that I can kill shit with it. That's what I want.
100%. Like even when I was shooting, when I was a diehard bow hunter back in the day, I built one arrow weight. It was 440.1. I still remember that exactly. 440.1 grains, 100 grain broadhead. I had a 32 grain outsert, 4 fletch. Hunted that with elk, hunted it with mule deer, shot antelope with it, killed everything because I just knew how it worked. And it's like, nowadays, like, why don't you build a really heavy arrow for elk, and you should have a very lighter, faster flying arrow for antelope. It's like, well, they're all going to kill if I know how they work. And if I shoot them proficient enough, do I know how the arrow drop is if I can't dial my sight? Like, I would rather just learn a weapon through and through and use one setup.
That's a smart. Dude, I got to hear about this Alaska trip that you did this year, this moose hunt, because moose is a dream of mine that I haven't lived yet. I will probably in 25. Yeah. But I saw some tidbits of it on Instagram. Yeah. But I want you to tell, like, I want to hear the story. I want to hear the story about your 2023 moose.
And it's such a phenomenal story. It's like, it makes me just, I don't know, get butterflies just even thinking about it. Because like moose are an amazing animal. Like I feel very fortunate. Like I guess I killed one 10 years ago with my bow in Canada. I killed a Canadian bull. And so it's like this weird 10-year thing. Like I'm going to another 10-year reunion of Akuja this year. It's kind of cool in that sense. But like,
Yeah.
So like we just, Lampers, Brian Call and I just, had this wild hair to, go do a crazy moose adventure together. And it was kind of like a last minute planning thing, but Ryan's been kind of planning this for a while. And I'm trying to figure out logistics and sending me some areas like, hey, what do you think about this spot? We're trying to like narrow it down. And finally we get to the point where we're going to go to Alaska. And I'm just like, I'm going to Alaska. Like, this is a dream of mine. Like I've been to some crazy places hunting, but like I've never hunted Alaska before.
Really?
And never have. No. Mm-mm.
Wow.
So I was like, that was intriguing to me just to finally like be like, all right, here we are. We're going to fly up to Alaska, hang out. Like I did do a little halibut fishing back in the day with my dad and my brothers, but like I've never actually hunted it before. And growing up, having stories from my dad, like my dad's been in Alaska multiple times. He's shot a lot of caribou up there. My dad's also shot a moose. And just like the adventure of just being dropped off in the middle of nowhere and realizing like, hey, you're just out here in the coolest place in the world. Like I think Alaska is so amazing. Like picking up old Outdoor Life, Field and Stream magazines back in the day, literally reading about Alaska. I have so many books at my house about like how to hunt Alaska, how to hunt Alaska caribou, old like Jack O'Connor books about, sheep hunting and all this stuff. And it's like, Alaska's always intrigued me. So like getting to go up there and then do that. And then, logistically figuring out where we're going to go, finally get up there. And of course we're up there the whole time. Like we got there super early. We got there like, I want to say I flew to Alaska like 6 days before the season opened. And of course it's raining.
Oh, wow.
Like,
of course.
Yeah. We landed in a super small town, and what's really cool about, like, I just love small towns everywhere because I grew up in a small town, but obviously this Alaska town's a lot smaller. It's like there was no cell phone service in this town. You get off the airplane and literally no cell phone service. I'm like, this is my kind of place. This is my kind of place. And people are like, oh, well, Brady, you're always active on social, and you work at Go Hunt. They're an online company, but it's like if I could do it and not be on social, oh, it would be so great. I could shut my phone off. I hate, talking on the phone. Like I'm a person who just loves being by myself. So this Alaska trip was just perfect. I think it meshes well too with Lampers and myself. And even like Brian Calder agree. Like we just like being out in the mountain by ourselves. Mm-hmm. So like landing there, we ended up flying in. We flew in like 5 days early. So we're out there for 5 days before the season starts. Mm-hmm. Once we get dropped off, and I'm just like, you just realize like, hey, we're out here now. Like we're all on our own. Again, it's downpouring rain, just downpouring, complete downpour. And did
you guys land? Did you guys take a Super Cub or a float plane or?
Yeah, a little float plane. Yep.
Nice. So you just set up camp and hung out for 5 days, or did you float, or what did you do?
Yeah, so here's the crazy thing. So we couldn't actually get to the spot we wanted to go to because the waves were pretty severe. So like we land and it's raining, and now we're like, well, now we have to toss our waders on. We already had our waders on, but we're like, we have to move all these bags to another part of the lake to actually set up camp. So we basically just blew up our rafts, threw all of our gear on the rafts, and like walked into the Whitecaps. And of course, the Whitecaps are coming into the shore where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. So we really had to maneuver around to find a little cove to set up camp, get over there, set up camp, set up wall tent. And I'm like, well, now we need wood. There ain't any wood around here, like none in the wall tent. So we had to like climb up the mountain to go try to find some dry or some reasonably dry wood. Mm-hmm. And then we just try to, crank the wall tent up, get everything kind of heated and going. And then for the next 5 days after we set up there, we did a lot of fishing. We caught a lot of fish, ate a lot of good stuff, but like we wanted to use those 5 days to like scout. Mm-hmm. So basically we just kept hiking every single drainage. Like, let's just go up that drainage today. Let's go up this other one the next day. Let's go take the rafts and go, on the water and go across the lake and go check out some other areas. We just kept scouting bulls and tried to figure out exactly what the lay of the land looked like, where these bulls were at. And the problem was we found a lot of big bulls. It's a good thing and a bad thing, which we'll get to in a little bit. So we found a lot of big bulls, and every day we see these same big bulls. And some of these bulls were like not too far from camp, like maybe a mile and a half from camp. Mm-hmm. And they had velvet on still. Oh, wow. And so like early September, they still had velvet. And that's why we wanted to kind of hunt really early when the season opens. Like we want to try to chase these bulls around the mountains. And so we're like, man, we have these bulls spotted. Like, let's just, potentially we wanted to keep watching these bulls. We knew every day where they're at. We kept checking out new areas, kept trying to cross some other things off. All of a sudden we saw some more big bulls. So we're finding, like I said, multiple big bulls. And we wanted to play it like whoever spots a moose first, that's their moose. That's how we normally do things when I'm out hunting, because that way everyone in the group is like actively glassing, actively trying to find something. Just turns out always, I don't know how it is, but like Ryan spotted all the bulls, the big bulls first. Like Brian and I were somehow spotting these smaller bulls first, but like Ryan had first dibs on all the big bulls.
Yeah.
So 5 days go by of us just watching these bulls and checking out new areas. And like the big bull that he wanted to go after a couple days beforehand started to slightly move away for some weird reason. Like we never bumped him. We never even got close to him. We were watching from a long distance away. And even one day I was like literally glassing in the lake, looking at bulls. Like I had the tripod sitting in the lake while glassing. I thought that was super cool. I'm like standing in my waders, standing on the lake shore, glassing bulls from the water. And I was like, never done that before. And then, so opening day finally comes. We're like, let's go after this big bull, this big giant bull. He has like big swooping brows in the front, like gorgeous bull. Get in the rafts, go across this lake, climb up on this big glassing mountain that we had, looked all the way across in the morning, and it ended up being like foggy and raining. And that bull was nowhere. It was gone. Completely gone. He's been there for 5 days, this bull and 2 smaller bulls. But the night before, we actually had a pack of wolves howling, like right behind camp. So I can't blame it on the wolves. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, blame it on the wolves. But like we did have some wolves howling. So I don't know if that dealt with it. But it was also like those bulls were getting ready to strip. Like the big bull did have some velvet starting to hang off. So maybe it was getting a little bit squirrely, like kind of like a big old mule deer do. You know, they're in the open when they have velvet on. They strip. It's not quite the rut yet. Maybe now they're getting into some thick stuff. So we're sitting up there glassing, and we brought 2 days. I think it was 2 days worth of food with on that trip. We were like, well, we'll spike out if we need to. You know, we'll leave our wall tent and we'll spike out and maybe do a 2-day hunt and try to kill this bull. Maybe see if we can kill the other bull that we had located as well. Ryan swears this morning he saw a sight of a bull way out in this distance. And it was a long ways away, like 3 miles away. And going 3 miles in Alaska and willows takes you forever. So Ryan, did you really, really see this bull? Because we're going to go all the way over there for a whim. Like, I want to make sure you actually saw it. Because Brian and I didn't see it. So we're like, you have no digiscope proof you saw this bull. You didn't, like, you have nothing. So we're going to go over there and like, okay, let's trust you. So we dove off our knob, hiked all the way over. It took forever in these nasty willows. We're like, it always looks easier when up on top. We look down, like, oh yeah, we can take that little path through the willows and get over there. And I try to take pictures on my phone to reference it and like drop little waypoints. But you get down there and it's just a jungle. It took like a long time, maybe till like noon or whatever, to get all the way over where we thought that bull was. Of course, we didn't see that bull. Didn't see any moose over there. We sat there for a while, looked around all the terrain, didn't see anything. So we're like, well, now what do we do? It's opening day still. Haven't seen this bull. We decided to climb up on this mountain. This mountain's like up in sheep country, like a giant mountain. We climbed all the way to the top of it because this was the mountain that was right behind camp. And so basically we're making like a giant circle now. And we got up on this big giant mountain, went all the way out past where camp was, where these other bulls were on this backside where we can't see them from our wall tent. And we get up there, and of course our number 2 bull is 50 yards from where we've been seeing him. Like he hasn't moved an inch. So we're like, dang it, we should have went after the number 2 bull right away, which is still a giant bull. And of course this was still Ryan's bull because he had spotted it first. So we're like, should we go kill it right now? We had like maybe an hour left of daylight. And like, yeah, maybe we could drop down there, or we could probably just kill this bull in the morning. But we're like, well, this other bull squirreling got out of there. Like maybe we should just go try to jump off this sheep mountain and get over there and try to kill this bull because he's just bedded down. Literally right when we decided to go down there to go kill that bull, we saw a big old bear, like a grizzly brown bear. Like seemed like there was kind of a mix of both in the area, but most likely it was probably a grizzly. Comes walking right next to that moose, spooks that moose. That moose runs away. We never saw that moose ever again.
What? No shit.
So it's like if we would have been there that morning, we would have killed probably that bull, our number 2 bull. But instead we tried to go after a bigger one, which is obviously a smart thing to do. But there's a randomness of we're deciding to go kill that bull now, and then a bear comes in and spooks that moose, and that moose just runs away. So now here we are thinking like we just lost both our shooter bulls. We've been here for 5 days glassing and stayed in this area because we had some big shooter bulls, and now they're gone. Like, what's going on? Like opening day, we had high hopes. And then we're sitting there glassing that same spot in the evening. All of a sudden I look across, like way far away. I'm like, I got a bull. And I'm just like, he's a giant. I can't remember exactly what I said. I think he said he looks like he has a wide load, like just like a dump truck on his head. And I got a good bull, put my digiscope on it. And I was like, yes, I finally found a big bull and I spotted him first. So like, this is my bull now. And we like looked at the footage, like, oh yeah, that's a bull we have to try to kill. So now I'm on like cloud 9 because like we have a plan now, but it's too late in the evening. But that bull is so far away from where we're at. We're like, well, let's just spike camp up here. So we decided to, pitch our teepees up and just slept there on the tundra that night. And the next morning woke up, and luckily that bull was still in the same spot. He moved a little bit. It's like a little meadow with one like pine tree in the middle of it. So I could visually reference exactly where he was at, pulled up my maps, could drop an exact pin where he was. I'm like, well, this bull's hanging out there. We couldn't see any cows. I think that was the only bull we saw that morning. And we're like, well, we have to go try to kill that bull. And so we grabbed our teepee that Brian had. Brian and I were going to go drop all the way down there and go try to kill this thing. And Ryan was going to stay up on top and like glass for bulls. So you could kind of see off the backside. You could overlook all this country we were looking at. So we were going to drop off. So we drop all the way off, nasty willows like Alaska has, get all the way out into this like little like, I don't know, I call it like a beaver pond area, that bunch of like beaver lodges and a bunch of beaver runs. And I'd taken a photo when I was up on top to reference it. And I tried to put my finger on it, and I was doing the whole rangefinder tool and go on maps and drop a pin exactly where the bull is. I knew exactly where the bull was at, and then I had all these meadows marked because I wanted to try to use the meadows as a connector to then navigate all the way over the bull was. Because if I went straight cross country, it would be just alders and willows and just horribleness, like beat your body up kind of stuff. So taking a picture is really nice, but we got down in that beaver pond area, and literally it's out of a movie of like, I visually remember it being like a Jurassic Park movie, like Jurassic Park, The Lost World. And I said, like, don't go into the tall grass because of the velociraptors. We get into the tall grass. Brian's like 5 feet ahead of me because we're trying to cross this beaver run because super deep water. And I'm like, Brian, don't move. He's like, what? I'm like, there's an effing brown bear 80 yards in front of us, bedded down in the grass. You can just see its head in the grass.
Shit.
And we're in the grass as well. We're in the grass. We're not near timber or anything. So I'm like, what is going on right now? Like this is the one determining factor of us getting through this stuff. And these meadows are the only way we can do this. So I'm like, all right, we got a brown bear in front of us. Brian starts recording this brown bear. And somehow, like, I don't know if he got our wind, but it looked like he had like a bunch of bees on him. Like he was like very confused because I always think he's jumped up and like was looking around. He couldn't see us, but I'm like, that is a big looking bear. Like it wasn't a giant bear, but it's bigger than I've seen in like Montana or Wyoming, like a grizzly. And it just starts running. And I'm like, I'm glad it's running the opposite direction of us, but it's running and like constantly like spinning in circles and like kind of like biting at its side and pawing at its face. So I'm assuming he maybe had like some bees nesting or something weird by him because like maybe he had a bunch of bees flying on him. He was really annoyed because he kept like pawing at his face and kind of running and kind of spinning in a circle, which was very strange. But he ran all the way down this meadow, and I'm like, turning to Brian, I'm like, well, that was cool. Like it worked out, and the bear ran away from us. We didn't have to like scare it, but the bear went exactly where we wanted to go.
Ooh.
So now I'm like looking at my phone again, like, yeah, if we don't connect right where that bear actually went through to connect to the other meadow, we're gonna have to go cross country over all these willows. So I was like, what do we do? And I think Brian said like we just got to go follow the bear. So literally we just follow the bear, and it's like the stupidest thing ever because like, yeah, I have a rifle. Brian doesn't have any rifle. Both have pistols. But like as we get through this meadow, it starts narrowing, getting really close. It's like 10 yards across this gap, and it's kind of a little bit trees. And I'm like, brown bear could be there to our right. He could be to our left. We don't friggin' know. And we just like pulled our pistols out, had them all locked and loaded. And as we walked through, like, yeah, it could be now. We could have a bear jump at us. We don't know.
Jeez.
It's the easiest path to go through. And my heart was just racing. But it's like, I don't like when I'm out there though, I don't fully fear bears, but I'm very aware and of their presence and, appreciate what they are. But it's just like, my heart was racing uncontrollably.
Oh, dude.
But,
yeah.
This is like
for good reason.
Yeah, I respect them a lot, and we saw a metric ton of bears when we were up there. So like everywhere we looked, there'd be bears up high, there'd be bears down low. Like there were so many bears.
Did you guys have bear fences for your teepees?
No, we did not.
Dude, I don't know that I could do that without a bear fence.
Yeah.
You didn't have any problems though with it?
We didn't have any problems. No. We tried to keep a good camp as best we could, but like, I never had any issues.
What do you mean by that? Just keeping food out of camp and stuff like that?
Kind of keeping food out of camp. We definitely did cook sometimes in our spike camp, but like, for most part, we hung everything that we could, and like, let's not dirty everything up. And obviously, after I killed my moose, keeping the moose meat well away from it and stuff like that. But just like, being aware, just not leaving wrappers or even. I don't like even leaving toothbrush in my camp around hunting around bears.
Really,
like that stuff smells. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
it's hard.
You're
We'll go for
just
it.
you're just hanging that stuff up 100 yards
Yeah,
away or
hanging it up.
something? Or? Yeah.
Yeah, just hanging it away from camp. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you go through this gap.
So I go through this gap, and now I'm like, okay, now we're cruising. Like, I think the bear's not around here anywhere, but like you do see bear tracks like going across these meadows all the time. Like, who knows when these bears are here? You see a lot of moose tracks. So we're sneaking all the way through there. We finally get over to our knob where we wanted to go to. I referenced it. Hike up on top of that knob. And like, dude, like that moose was right out here the night before. And this is still the second day of the hunt. And looking around, like we don't see any moose at all. And our vision's kind of limited when we're there. We can't glass a lot of stuff. It's not like a giant knob, but it's a knob where you can kind of look over the meadow a little bit and see kind of the meadows to our right and a little bit to our left. So we sat there all evening, no moose at all. He never showed up. I'm like, man, the night before he showed up right here. Now we're like, I think when I retracked it all the way back to the wall tent, like we wanted to go to the wall tent, it was like 4.5 or 5 miles.
Oh,
like
Jesus.
We're way away from camp. We're spike camping for moose, which is something that is not, the smartest probably thing to do.
Right.
And so it's just Brian and I, and we're like, yeah, let's just go camp up on this knob. Let's make a low minimum camp. Let's not try to make a lot of noise. I can't remember if we put the stove up that night or not. I don't think we did put the stove up in the teepee. But just, camp there that night. I believe it was the next day, day 2. Oh, the next morning was day 3. So next morning we woke up, get over to that knob. I don't see anything again. I'm just like, okay, I understand moose and any animal for that reason don't do exactly the same thing constantly. But I'm like, there had to be slightly a pattern because other moose we were seeing kind of were doing a pattern. He's kind of seen them multiple times. But I'm like, maybe this thing's doing what the big bull did. Maybe he stripped and it got squirrely and moved. Did a bear come in the area and spook him and move? And like I'm sitting there in glassing knob, I'm walking down a little bit on my glassing knob, coming back up, trying to like get different vantage points. I thought a lot about like deer hunting, about like don't just sit in one spot, like move around.
Yeah.
And so I moved around a little bit, and all of a sudden I look over and I saw antlers. I'm like, dude, he's on the edge of the meadow, like literally on the edge of the meadow. And I can't remember if Brian saw him right then too, but we finally both got in agreement, like the moose is over there. And Brian's getting his camera ready. I'm starting to get my rifle ready. I'm like, this is going to happen. It's morning of day 3. Like literally like that last night too was our last meal, and the morning was our last bit of food, by the way. That's going to come into play here pretty quick. So last bit of food. And I'm like, we're just going to be out here trying to kill this moose. And there's that bull finally. So like everything's going to come together perfectly. The bull is on the edge of the timber. There's a few sparse looking trees. And the bull never presented a shot and literally walked out of my life. Never came in the open. It's like an old bull. Just had like, I don't want to say he had like a sixth sense, but it did seem like he just knew, not to come out in the meadow. When he came out the meadow, 2 nights before that. And then the other morning before we got there, he was hung right on the edge where you could see his rack, you could see his body. He needed literally like, I think it said like 5 or 10 more steps and he was dead. He was like 300 yards away. But there was just every time he would take a step into something, there was something else blocking his vitals. And literally had to watch that bull turn around and go back into the swamp. And it's like, like we just thought it was done. And now we like I said, we don't have any food. That was the last bit of food in the morning. So like we're just sitting there, it starts to rain, put a tarp up, and we start making some coffee right there, trying to still like low minimum impacts like coffee. Just get the coffee going. And I think this might have been like an hour, maybe an hour and a half later. But it's like, bummed on life, trying to look for the moose, don't see him. We look across, like the meadow, and then there was like a bunch of trees and like another kind of little knob across from us. Looked over there. There's the rack. Like Brian had done some calling afterwards. Like we kept trying to go back and forth if calling was going to be a good thing or not because these bulls had no sign
Pretty
of the rut.
early.
There was no cows with them. Yeah, very early. So like, Brian's hunted moose, probably more than I have. I just had that one Canadian hunt and they've done it a couple times. Like, I'll trust you. He's like, sometimes you call and you spook him. Or sometimes you call, you alert it, there's another bull here. He might not like that because it's not the rut and he might just leave.
Right.
It's like, we have to do something. So he did let out a few calls. And so I do think it is sometimes what people say, like my dad told me before, they'll call in the evening, you don't see anything, you show up in the morning, or maybe it's not something, but all of a sudden, middle of the day, there's a moose just comes walking to your call. So I think that bull must have like looped back around, heard that call, and just came out and was like staring in our direction, trying to figure out like, was that a moose? Was that something? But not acting ruddy or anything, but just like trying to figure out what it was. So now we're like, now it's game on. And luckily he was within my comfortable distance right there. So like we didn't have to make a stock, just literally get our gear set up. I had to stack both my backpack and Brian's backpack on top of each other, try to get above all the brush to shoot. So I couldn't like lay down with my bipod, still put my bipod out in front of the gun, trying to get comfortable. The shooting window I had, no joke, maybe 18 inches. That's all I have to shoot through. And the bull's on the left edge of it. All the left edge is trees, all the right is trees, below is trees, above trees. Like there's just one tiny gap, and all you can see is his left horn sticking in the opening right there. So I'm on the gun. I've like ranged it a million times. I've dialed, make sure my scope's dialed. I double checked the windage. I knew it was like getting pretty windy, so I had my wind meter out, trying to grab the wind, dialing wind. Everything was perfect. I'm just like, this bull has to step out. Finally, he started making a little motion. Brian's like, he's moving. I'm like, I see it. I'm like, you ready? And he's like, yep. So I go and press the shot off as he's like just getting into the opening because the moose is so big. I'm like, I can get it there, even if he's going to step into it. Like, this is my only shot window I have. Like, he cannot cross through this. We cannot yell to probably stop him. So I touched it off when he was going through there, hit him. I was like, I heard it hit. And Brian's like, yeah, you hit him. You crunched him. But I didn't know completely because then he spun around. He went through the opening. That was 18 inches. Now he turned all the way back around. Like I said before, he was on the left side of the opening. Now he's on the right side of the opening with his nose, just the tip of his moose nose in the opening. Like he's just standing there. And I'm like, I hit him, right, Brian? He's like, yeah, you hit him. And we just couldn't fully tell because we couldn't see blood because now his whole body's blocked by those trees. That's how short, tight that window was. But I could see his nose. I'm like, Brian, I have no shot. I can't take another shot at all. I can't comfortably shoot at any part of him that's going to put him down now. And I'm just watching. And all of a sudden, Brian's like, he's getting a little squirrely. Like, looked like he was like moving a little bit. And then boom, he just fell over.
Oh, shit.
Like he went 5 feet after impact and tipped over. And I was like, I'm like, Brian's like, yeah, he fell over. I'm like, are you sure he fell over or did he just bed? I guess to me, that's a big distinction on an animal.
Big difference.
Bedding or falling over. Because if he bedded, maybe the shot wasn't as great as I thought. Did he fall? That means he lost control and he's dead. Brian's like, I think he totally just fell. He not just bed down. So now I'm like, well, I can't shoot him still because he's in all the trees. So I can slightly through my spotter see a little bit of antler. And I can see it kind of moving a little bit, but it's not like moving like he's up bedded. So I do think he fell. He did not bed. And we're like, I think we just killed the bull. And I'm like, Brian, I need to see the footage. And like Brian shoots in whatever it is, S-Log or some like all grayscale stuff. So like none of the colors are there on his video. We didn't digiscope on my phone. So he's trying to review it. And I'm like, Brian, if you're going to actually delete this file by reviewing it, don't mess up this file. Like this is our kill shot. Like we've been struggling up till, it's only day 3 of the hunt. But like, don't jack this up. Let me just take my phone, record off the back of your camera. And that way I can play it slow motion to see that bullet hit that moose and I could watch the bullet arc. I could watch it impact him. I could watch the moose hump. So I'm like, I definitely hit him and I definitely saw him fall. It looked like a perfect shot.
Right.
We think it's a dead moose, but we still don't know. And we gave him a little bit of time, packed up all the tarp, packed up everything, decided to grab camp as well and started hiking over there. And we just like one of those stupid things where we probably should have just dropped down in front of us, caught the meadow and went over there. But like, let's just take this little shortcut. Let's make sure we're out of sight, which is probably good to stay out of sight. If you don't know exactly where he's at. But it was a thick jungle. Like the thickest jungle ever. And I'm walking through the thick jungle and I'm like, all of a sudden I stop and I'm like, I can't even hear Brian. And I know he's over to my left in the same jungle as me walking through it, but it's so thick you can't hear anything. I can't even see the tops of the trees. And I'm like trying to see where Brian's at. I'm like, Brian? I'm yelling. He doesn't even respond back. So I'm like, whatever. He's probably somewhere nearby. But I'm like, there's also bears in the area. I kind of want to keep an eye on each other. I get all the way through that little thing and just like my face is all scarred up. Like my backpack is just beat to crap. And I get through there and I look down at my rifle and I have an adjustable cheek piece on my rifle with like a little nut and a bolt. My cheek piece is gone. So now if you picture a rifle stock, how it's like curved and angled, there's just a big U-shaped chunk missing out of it. So if I wanted to put my cheek on it to take a shot, I would not have to do anything. Somehow it got caught on the brush, loosened up and fell off. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to take like a jacket now or something and electrical tape it or duct tape it onto my stock if I have to take a shot at this moose again. Or I'm just going to have to hold my cheek up and just guess where my face needs to go. All of a sudden, Brian comes out of the brush and he's like, Brady. I'm like, yeah, there you are. And he's like, You missing something? I'm like, no. I'm like, no way. He was in a totally different area earlier. Somehow you guys get, crossed when you're going through all these willows, and he found my cheek piece. He's like, yeah, you tried to cross this little creek and you must have jumped and it fell off.
Oh, shit.
So we get that. We walk over a little bit. I'm like looking at my maps because every time I shoot something too, I drop the rangefinder tool exact pin of where that animal's at. Like we're heading right to it. We get to the spot, take our backpacks off. I load a round in, walking up there. I'm like looking over here. I'm like, this wasn't the exact spot. I looked at my phone. I'm like, yeah, it's right over here to the right. Went around a little tree, just up on that little bench. I saw a giant moose antler just sticking above the grass. I lost it. When I'm saying I lost it, I bawled. I was just
shit.
Like earlier, like I was like, I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to do anything. But like I saw that antler. I turned around, like my eyes must have been just giant. Like just saw Brian for the first time, like there he is right there. And I'm like, Brian, hold on. I want to sat message my dad and my mom. And so I sat messaged them, and that just made it even worse. Brian started like trying to film me, and I was like, dude, I am a mess right now. Like I'm just emotionally wrecked because I was like, I remember when my dad shot a moose. It was a really cool thing. He sat messaged me.
Yeah.
I just shot an Alaskan moose. I'm messaging him right now. It was just emotionally gone. I was like, we worked so hard. Here, like this moose just went 5 feet and died. Giant moose like that. Tipped right over. I got to spot it. We stalked over in there, had that grizzly encounter, ran out of food. We don't have no food right now at all. And here's this moose laying there, and we walk up to it, and I'm just like, it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger and bigger. And finally I walk right next to it, set my gun down, and like I try to move his rack. I can't even pick the head up. Like my dad, like when I shot my Canadian bull, my bull wasn't a giant, but like I still remember them being huge and like hard to move. And my dad shot a bigger Canadian before, and I actually got to move it. And I was like, this thing is unbelievably large. Like words can't even describe it. I put my hand next to it and took some photos. Like they're just gigantic. Like everything about them, their nose is so big. Like, and then just to see that moose and like, he's bigger than I thought he was. He has giant paddles, like he's really wide, just long tine length, rounded off on the top, super old bull, really cool. Like, how they get really cool color in the hide, and just like sitting over this animal, like this just happened.
And you're 5 miles from camp.
5 miles from camp. Me and Brian are just out there with the bears. Ryan's up on top of the mountain. No food. And this is actually one of the nicest days. So after like the fog and stuff and everything, like it was actually pretty nice when we're sitting here. So we're just like soaking it up. Like this happened, and it's a phenomenal day. Like something I've dreamed about happening my entire life. Like here I am in a place that's special to me. My dad also killed a moose in Alaska in a different area, but like this kind of hit home, like I did something special that I wish everyone in the world could go experience. I honestly, I'll say that at the end of the time, I hope everyone can go and experience what I experienced, because it's life-changing. Like I've done some cool things, but like every time you go out and do another adventure, that's another life-changing experience. That's another thing that builds character, that like you become so much stronger. You feel like more connected to family, more connected to coworkers when you come back. That is just the highlight of my life, being out there. Even if we didn't kill, but like that moment, you just want to bottle up that emotion and like crack it open every day. Cause like, that's just what gives me purpose to like live, is like pursue all that crazy stuff. So it was phenomenal. And then, like I said, we didn't have any food. So this is where it gets really interesting. We cut up my moose, and we're just like, we literally don't have anything to eat. We don't have a snack. We don't even have like an energy chew or like a bar, nothing. So we're cutting this moose the whole entire time. And like, we're just like, man, this moose meat looks real good. I can't wait to eat it. But like, we're just emotionally drained. Now we're getting physically drained from cutting up the moose, and we're trying to like, position, before we even did that, trying to position the rack and try to take a bunch of photos together, try to soak it up. And like cutting this moose is just exhausting. And one of the cooler things that made it a little bit easier is I've never known this tip before, and I want to see if you've known it, but like Brian showed me something where I was like, why don't you guys talk about this on video more? Where he took 2 Peaks trekking poles, the loops that come down, hook the hoof of an animal through those loops, and so you cross those trekking poles, so the moose is actually on the loops, and you get underneath the quarter, and you slightly lift the quarter up, and as you're lifting the quarter up, you take the trekking poles and like lock them out. So all of a sudden that moose is hanging there on the trekking pole. So it's like a little teepee with the trekking pole. So now when you're like trying to cut the hide and get all the hide off the quarter, and then try to get the quarter off. You're not having to fight it by like, hey, can you hold this leg for me? Or tie it to a tree, just use a trekking poles.
Yeah, I saw that in their video from a couple years ago. It's brilliant. It's a great way to use it. Because, dude, can you imagine doing that job by yourself?
Oh. Like, we were like, do we maybe try to move it a little bit? Because it was kind of like nose was kind of facing down and try to take a photo. Like, we can't move it. We tried to grab it and pull it. Like, you can't do anything. Like, where those things die, they die.
Right.
But like that little trick was like, why have I never seen this? And Brian's like, yeah, we've shown it before. But I'm like, dude, you need to do a better job at showing this, because this is a game changer.
Use it on elk?
Yeah, I did it on deer this year with my brothers. Like, it was great.
Yeah, fantastic.
So we started doing that. We started cutting it all up, and it was, go for it.
I was going to ask you, so you get this thing cut up. That takes all day, obviously.
All day. We're trained.
And you're deboning it, I assume?
No.
Oh, that's right. In Alaska, you can't do that, right?
Yeah, we can't debone. So that just adds to the fun and the pain.
And then, do you have to take the ribs? Is that something I heard too? And you got to take them on the ribs.
Well, we actually called and talked to a game warden before, and they said we can actually rib roll. As long as you do a perfect job of rib rolling it, and we can actually leave the ribs on there, but we can like fold it over. And we made sure to take a bunch of pictures of everything. Yeah. And then the best part for me though is like reaching in and grabbing the heart out, because I always eat heart of everything. Yeah. But like the heart had actually a little bullet mark on the bottom of the heart, right? Where it hit the moose. So it's cool to actually hit it. But the moose are like, their hearts are giant. So it's like saying you had a heart shot. It's like, okay, well, it's a big target to aim at.
So what did you guys do? You ate some moose?
Yeah. So then we got back, we set up camp, moved the moose meat away from there, and I kind of set the moose in the meadow, because there's no trees big enough to hang the moose meat. Like those quarters are, someone will probably say I'm quoting it wrong, but we were discussing like they're at least 140 pounds with bone in. And the fronts are maybe like 110. And then you have a giant rack. I'm trying to like hang up in a tree, because I've heard horror stories of like, animals dragging racks off. Right. And I don't want an animal to drag the meat off either, but we figured the meat's safer in the meadow, because then maybe a bear doesn't want to come out in the meadow a little bit rather than putting it next to a tree. Mm-hmm. And so we set up our camp, and we grabbed a bunch of like backstrap there, grabbed a bunch of moose fat. We cut off the moose, and we had the heart. So here we are in the peak shelter, just rendering down moose fat and eating moose heart. And when I say this, to be like, oh yeah, it's because you're in the backcountry and things always taste better than the backcountry, which they definitely, there's a chance to. But moose fat, the best fat I've ever eaten in my life, hands down. It'll top any steak. Like we were sometimes just rendering the moose fat and make those little like cracklings and just eating it, just like eating it, popping it like Skittles. Moose fat was so good.
Yep.
And then we're just like having the heart.
Dude, my mouth's watering right now just thinking of that scenario. Like all that hard work, and you're in teepee, you're in Alaska, like this ultimate adventure, lifelong dream. You're starving after. Yeah. Dude, even when you're fully energized, even just breaking down an elk, you're exhausted. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And a moose is a whole nother level. So now you're in the teepee eating the best food on earth.
Yep.
And just reveling in the moment. That's I know it sounds dangerous that you ran out of food and you're that far away. Like there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong.
Yeah.
But that's also what makes it an amazing experience.
That just made it even, like I was talking about earlier, how like this meant the world to me. Like doing that, even though I don't plan on like running out of food, and people are like, oh, you should have planned better, you should have done this. Like we didn't anticipate. I will go do whatever it takes to kill an animal. If it took 3 more days and we weren't eating, Brian and I talked, we were just going to be finding some, blueberries and stuff like that. We'd be able to do it. Like we're willing to stay out there longer. Like, yeah, It's going to suck, but the body's capable of so much more than we give it credit for. So we'll stay there and do it. But like sitting there eating moose heart rendered in moose fat, eating moose fat all night long, cranking up that stove till it's like Africa hot in that teepee, hanging all of our gear up on top, drying it out, waking up the next day. Oh, Brian, what are we going to have for breakfast today? Well, we're going to have moose heart, like eating moose heart again. Eating moose backstrap, starting to carry meat, down to a different area to get it transported out of there. And like that whole day, eating moose meat, eating heart, packing little baggies with us of it until like finally Ryan came down to like resupply us and then help us. But like I was living life. That was the most fun I've ever had. Is like, packing moose meat is brutal. It like catches on everything. You like every step just hurts. It's so heavy and so awkward, but like, that's living life to its fullest right there. I wouldn't trade any of that stuff. for
Oh
anything in the
yeah.
world.
So what was Ryan doing this whole time? He was hunting for himself. And were you guys able to stay in contact via DeLorem, or how did you guys communicate?
Yeah, we had our inReach, and so we're inReaching each other back and forth. Like, he's like, yeah, there isn't really much moose up here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, like we obviously knew we killed, and we're telling them that, but like, you stay up there. Like, really, we don't need you right now. Like, you don't have to rush down to come get us. And like, part of me is also like, too, like, it's kind of dangerous hiking through that stuff by yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, luckily, you know, we'd all would do it if we had to, because I want to help each other. But I'm like, I understand you want to be here right now, but your best time is probably spent being up on that knob. Because once you come down here, we can't glass anymore. We can't see country. Like, we're kind of blind. So best thing to do is probably stay up there, try to find a moose to go kill.
Yeah.
You know, mark it on the map, take some photos of where it's at, and find one. And unfortunately, he didn't find any moose. I think he saw some like really, really far away, and saw some cows, saw some more bears. Like, there's bears everywhere. But I was like, we need a resupply, Ryan. Like, we need you to go back down to Waltent, which is also far from where he's at. It's not like it's just right below the hill. It's like, we need you to drop all the way down there, get a bunch of food for us, because we have to try to pack this moose out. And then maybe we can try to hunt down where we're at, grab a bunch of extra stuff for us, because we need some more gear. I'm running out of contacts. Like, I let him borrow my solar charger because he was up on top without a solar charger. His is back at the wall tent. So I'm like, I need some charge juice, because like my phone's running low, which means I can't charge up anything, can't charge my inReach. Bring us back some stuff so we can survive. Bring us back a ton of food. And then he actually hiked all the way by himself that like 5 miles. It couldn't even be longer because you're zigzagging back through, willows and stuff like that. And then he came and finally helped us. But like, the whole time I'm thinking like,
wow,
Ryan's going to do this solo, like in G-Bear country, which is pretty awesome of him to go and be like, yeah, I'm going to come down.
G-Bear infestation.
Like, we definitely saw way more bears than we did moose on this hunt.
Yeah, that's next level, man. So were you able to pack the moose to a part of the lake where you didn't have to go all the way back to the wall tent, and the plane could just land over there and get it?
Yep. So we coordinated with the pilot to say, okay, we need to get this moose meat out. Like, come over here to this other place. And he's like, you guys are crazy. Like, you're here now and you were over there. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, no one does this.
That's funny. You guys are crazy. I concur with that. You guys are crazy. But you know what? You said I was living. I just think about all the things in today's culture that we consider living, like going out to a club, getting super wasted until 4 a.m, dancing and stuff. And I know there's fun parts to that too. But I guess the point is, like, truly living. What the hell is that? Oh, truly living is what you are doing, in my opinion. Like, you're like as connected to true human adventure as you can get. Like Alaska, we did a survey one time at Sitka Gear when I was working there. We did a big research study, and Alaska is the #1 aspiration for all hunters, and that's including duck hunters, deer hunters, elk hunters, everybody. Alaska was #1 by far, and there's a reason for that. The feeling. Now, I've only actually hunted in Alaska once, been up there several times. But the feeling that you get when you're out there, especially if you're in that, brown bear or grizzly bear country, I just don't know that you can get that adventure very many other places. I'm sure there are places like when you describe breaking down, like over that moose, like emotionally, I did the same thing with my stone sheep in northern British Columbia, because all I could think about was my grandpa in the flannel hunting black, like blue collar hunts, and then passing that passion to my dad, which then created more connections and more knowledge for me to actually end up on this mountain over this stone sheep. Like, that's all I could think about. Like, yeah, it was cool to get the stone sheep, but I'm like, why do I get to do this? They're the ones that deserve this. Like, it was just overwhelming. So I know the feeling and the adventure of being in like northern British Columbia in this wild country, and these stone sheep that only exist in this area on the earth. And like, there's so many emotions, it's hard to describe. And obviously there's a huge high when you get that mule deer or that elk or whatever your passion animal is. But I don't think that it can be matched, the adventure you feel in that North country. And I don't have a lot. I've got to live almost every one of my hunting dreams, and honestly, almost every one of my life dreams. And I feel like a spoiled brat saying that, but it's true. I feel so lucky. Like I feel like a billionaire in experiences. I definitely am not a billionaire in money, but I in experiences, I do feel like I'm extremely rich and very fortunate. But one of the things that I regret in my hunting life is not making it more of a priority to go north. I feel like I'm 43 now. Lampers and I talked about this. Like, he's like, dude, I only have so many years of packing moose left. He's Lampers is 50, I think, or 49.
Yeah,
And he's tough.
50.
And he's tough as nails. But dude, you're not doing what you guys did when you're 70.
No.
I mean, there might be a few people that can do that, but probably not us. So the point is like in my, like going forward, I'm going to make a priority, even if I have to miss. Here's my biggest problem. I don't want to miss September because I cherish it so much and I love elk hunting. It's very hard for me to go, even if it's moose, it's very hard for me to miss September. But now looking back, I wish I would have made that sacrifice more. I wish I would have done Alaska moose by now. Like it really is something I should have done. So in 25, I'm going and I'm stoked. And I just regret that it's taken me this long. So any of you 30-year-olds out there that don't want to miss your Montana elk or your Wyoming elk or whatever, and you have the means to plan and go to Alaska earlier in your life, do it. Sacrifice that September. Your resident elk tag will be there the year after. Like, just do it and enjoy it and stay as long as you can. That was the other thing. Someone told me before I went on my stone sheep hunt. They're like, how long are you going? I'm like, it's a 10-day hunt. They're like, stay all 10 days.
Yep.
Even if you kill a sheep, stay all 10 days. Do not go out early. And we filled all 3 of our stone sheep tags in 3 days. And we went out on the 4th day. And I kind of regret it a little bit. I wish we'd have stayed. I didn't have any more tags, but I kind of wish we'd have just hung out up there.
Yeah, because that's more memories. Every single day you're out there, you're learning something. Maybe you're learning something from a guide that you could take down to the States and hunt, or just like seeing new cool things. Like, you'll never be there again in your life.
No, I'll never see that mountain again.
Never. You'll never step foot there ever.
And if you think about it that way, that's actually like, that's heavy, dude. That's heavy.
Yeah. One of my really good friends a couple years ago, when we were texting back and forth, and I was, had some things happen in my life, and he was like, the best advice he gave me was just say yes. Like, to me, I take it as say yes to adventure, say yes to doing things you've never done before, say yes to, maybe hanging out with friends and doing something for the first time. But like when it comes to this sort of hunting thing, just say yes and go. Like you really have to. And I've like, since that, I've just kind of took that at heart and like, if I want to go do something, I'm going to find a way to go do it.
Yeah.
And if I have to, not do some things else in my life, but I really wanted to sacrifice to do it, I'm going to find a way to do it, because we're talking about, we're all getting older. I don't want to have any regrets, but I just want to say yes to anything adventure-wise that's going to be meaningful to my life, like going on these places.
Absolutely. So one of the things I've been thinking about a lot this year is like, I feel like I get in a routine every year of kind of doing not the same hunts over and over, but like you find something you like, you do it the next year. You find something you like, you do it the next year. And if you do that long enough, your years fill up pretty quick. So you never have really a chance to turn it upside down and do something totally new. So this year, I'm trying to think differently. I'm like, what could I do this year that's out of the norm? Like, I usually go to Hawaii and shoot some axis deer. I usually do this or that. But I'm like, I want some new adventure. I want to do something different. Maybe it'll be Australia. Maybe it'll be Argentina. Maybe it'll be whatever. Maybe I'll get a goat tag and wherever. I don't know. But this year, I want to do something that's out of my comfort zone and that I might have to sacrifice something because of it. But I've never regretted doing something like that.
Yeah, never in your life will you have regrets like that. You just got to go and do it when you can.
Dude, that sounds like an amazing adventure, dude. I'm so envious and a little bit jealous, but also like so happy for you that you got to do that. My back hurts thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, back hurts. And like the thing about the back and thing about like I'm saying, like, yeah, just go and do something right now. Make sure you're going to do something when you're able to as well, like physically, mentally, you have the experience. Because like I said, the back hurting, but like when we got back to a place where there's like more people in towns and we saw a bunch more moose hunters, some of these other moose hunters, literally, even though they had one person tagged out in their group, maybe a couple of them, multiple people said if they could have snapped their fingers and been back in their bedroom right now, they would have. Because they didn't come up there prepared. they had a horrible time because they they weren't prepared for the rain. They weren't prepared for all the hiking, the crazy adventures, running into bears. One guy capsized a raft and lost his rifle.
Ooh.
And they only had a longbow, I think, as the backup weapon for the rest of the time. So like the other two buddies had to use a longbow to try to kill, and it wasn't bow hunting terrain. Like did not come fully prepared. Yeah, you can't plan for all that stuff, but like multiple people said, like if they could snap their fingers and be out of the mountains right now in Alaska, they would have left because they had a horrible time. But it just comes down to like, I think being in that, you got to understand what's going on and like be prepared for it.
Oh,
and, like,
dude,
don't just go up there willy nilly.
You can't do any hunts like that unless you have the knowledge, the gear, the experience to do it yourself, and or you're with somebody that really, really, really does. Like, dude, there's so many nuances. Every different type of hunt has these, anything new that you're doing. If you're coming out west to do an elk hunt or whatever it might be, you have to lean into the knowledge and you have to trust the people to spend the money on the gear to do it right. Otherwise, you're going to have a miserable. And even this, dude. We have access to all the best gear. Yeah, it's one of the benefits of being in this industry. I have more good gear than I will ever need or use again. But every hunt I go on, something goes wrong, and I find out another hole in my game. I'm like, damn it, God, I can't believe that broke. How the hell did that break? And then I don't have a spare, or maybe this leaked or that leaked, dude. It's not easy. Backcountry hunting is extremely technical and difficult and full of challenge. And you can't plan the weather. You can't plan the bears. You can't plan all this thing. So, yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's just amazing, dude. I'm so happy for you, and I can't wait to see that moose in person.
Yeah, I have it sitting right down here, getting ready to hang it up, and like, I think I heard we're going to premiere this film during one of the shows this year.
They're going to do that at Expo. Yeah. We sponsored that night, so I'll be there, and I can't wait to watch.
You're going to be there?
Yeah, I'm going to be there for sure.
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah, so I get to experience this now. I got to live. I like hearing stories, man. Sometimes I just wish we could get around a campfire and tell stories, because we all go through these seasons, and then we see each other. We don't get to hear the stories. Like
I would rather just hang out. People see stories. Like I'd miss like I said, the campfire thing, or open up a photo album, looking at old hunts, or now it's like showing people your phone and going through it. Like, all hunters are storytellers. We love telling stories and love sharing adventures.
I when Will Primos was on yesterday, just listening to him talk, he tells stories so good. Like,
he's such a legend. I'm super jealous you got to talk to him,
dude. He would come on your guys' podcast.
Yeah, maybe
he's extremely smart. But just listen to him tell story. Like, he was telling me this story yesterday about this Mississippi buck he was chasing, and he ended up he called it Eric. But just hearing the way he tells stories and how his voice, and like, I just remember watching all those movies. So it's like listening to not literally, but it's like listening to a god talk. It's like, yes, tell me this story. I just want to sit down by a campfire and listen to stories, Yeah,
so I have a bunch of his old DVDs from back in the day, The Truth About Elk Hunting, The Truth, whatever this, like, he's a legend.
Oh, he's totally a legend. And when you tell him that, he just laughs. But dude, I appreciate you coming on. We've gone a couple hours and both of us have lives. So, but I'm hoping I will see you in a couple weeks.
I can't wait for that. I'm looking forward to hanging out and just, like I said, sharing stories.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, let's do this again soon. And everybody, you guys all know who Brady is. You follow him. Follow along his adventures. And when this moose film comes out, check it out, because it's going to be epic. And it'll come out on Gritty's channel sometime probably this spring, if I had to guess.
Yep. Yeah, appreciate you having me on. That was a really fun discussion. I always like hanging out with you, buddy.
You too, buddy. Let's do it again soon.
All right, take care.
Hey, Brady.